In an age where a relatively cheap drone can threaten million-dollar systems, what if the answer isn't something new at all? What if the solution has been sitting in history for over 80 years? Could a legendary World War II fighter like the P-51 Mustang actually stand a chance against modern threats like the Shahed drone? It sounds almost absurd at first. A propeller-driven aircraft, designed in the 1940s, facing off against modern drone warfare. The gap in technology feels too wide, too obvious. And yet, when you look closer, the comparison starts to feel less like fantasy, and more like a serious question. The P-51 Mustang wasn't just another fighter of its time. It was a machine built around efficiency, range, and performance. It could fly farther than most fighters of its era, escorting bombers deep into enemy territory and still have the speed and agility to defend itself. In many ways, it was ahead of its time. What made the Mustang truly exceptional wasn't just its speed or firepower. It was balance. It had the range to stay in the fight, the maneuverability to adapt, and the durability to survive. Pilots trusted it not just because it could win fights, but because it could bring them home. Now shift to the modern battlefield. Warfare has changed dramatically. Today's threats don't always come in the form of high-speed jets or heavily armored columns. Instead, they can appear as small, low-cost drones flying at low altitudes, often in large numbers, designed to overwhelm defenses through sheer volume. The Shahed drone represents exactly that shift. It's not fast. It's not stealthy in the traditional sense. But it's cheap, persistent, and effective when used in numbers. It doesn't need to win a dogfight. It only needs to reach its target. This creates a new kind of problem. Traditional air defense systems are often expensive and limited. Using high-end missiles to shoot down low-cost drones creates an imbalance. It becomes a battle of economics as much as technology. So the question emerges again. Could something like the P-51 Mustang, or at least its underlying concept, provide a more efficient way to counter these drones? At first glance, the idea has a certain logic. The Mustang was designed for endurance. It could stay in the air for long periods, covering large areas. In a scenario where drones need to be intercepted before reaching their targets, time in the air becomes a critical advantage. There's also the matter of speed. While the Mustang isn't comparable to modern jets, it is more than fast enough to intercept slow-moving drones. The Shahed drone is not designed for speed. It is designed for persistence. That difference could, in theory, be exploited. Then there's cost. Compared to modern fighter jets, operating a propeller-driven aircraft is significantly cheaper. In a world where cost per intercept is becoming a serious concern, this factor alone could make a difference. But this is where reality begins to push back. Because modern warfare is not just about speed and cost. It's about information. Detection, tracking, and targeting systems now play a central role in every engagement. A World War II-era aircraft like the P-51 Mustang was built for visual combat. Pilots relied on their eyes, their instincts, and their training. Today, that is no longer enough. Modern drone warfare often takes place beyond visual range. Targets are detected by radar, tracked by sensors, and engaged through integrated systems. Without these capabilities, even the most capable aircraft becomes limited. So if a modern Mustang were to exist, it wouldn't simply be a restored version of the original. It would need to be something else entirely. It would need advanced sensors, data links, and targeting systems that allow it to operate in today's complex battlespace. At that point, an interesting realization emerges. We already have aircraft that reflect this evolution. Platforms like the Embraer A-29 Super Tucano embody many of the same principles that made the Mustang effective, but adapted for modern missions. These aircraft are not designed to dominate high-end air combat. Instead, they focus on endurance, efficiency, and versatility. They operate in environments where air superiority is already established, providing support, surveillance, and precision engagement. In that context, the idea of using propeller-driven aircraft against drones starts to make more sense. not as a replacement for advanced fighters, but as part of a layered approach. Imagine a scenario where high-end systems handle the most dangerous threats, while lower-cost aircraft patrol for drones, intercepting them before they reach critical areas. It becomes a question of using the right tool for the right job. However, even this approach has its limitations. Modern air defense systems are not static. They evolve. In contested environments, even slower aircraft become vulnerable. Surface-to-air missiles, radar-guided systems, and electronic warfare all create risks that cannot be ignored. This brings us back to the core issue. The challenge is not just stopping drones. It's doing so in a way that is sustainable, scalable, and effective across different environments. And this is where the legacy of the P-51 Mustang becomes most relevant. Not as a literal solution, but as an idea. A philosophy of design that prioritizes efficiency, balance, and adaptability. Because in the end, the Mustang wasn't successful simply because it was powerful. It was successful because it was built for its mission. It solved a specific problem in a way that was both effective and practical. Today's battlefield demands the same kind of thinking. Not necessarily the same machines, but the same mindset. Build systems that are not just advanced, but appropriate. Not just powerful, but sustainable. Could the P-51 Mustang be the answer to modern drone threats? Probably not in its original form. The world has changed too much for that. But could the ideas behind it help shape the answer? That seems far more likely. Because sometimes, the future of warfare isn't about abandoning the past, but understanding it. And in that sense, the spirit of the Mustang may still be flying, just in forms we are only beginning to recognize. As technology continues to evolve, the line between old and new becomes less clear. What once seemed outdated can suddenly feel relevant again, not because the world has gone backward, but because the challenges have changed. And perhaps that is the real lesson here. Not whether an old aircraft can fight a modern war, but whether we are asking the right questions about how wars are fought in the first place. Because in the end, victory doesn't always belong to the most advanced system. Sometimes, it belongs to the one that fits the mission best. And that is exactly what made the Mustang legendary.